This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
It's 10 after the hour, which means bonus bucks time thanks to BigDeck.com. We try to give you $1,000 in our national cash contest. The keyword is green. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword green.
All right, we'll try to get caught up here. I went a little bit long with Trudell, who's always a lot of fun to have on the show. How far back do you and Trudell go, Gaardsy?
Man, 17, 18 years?
That long?
Yeah, back when he was working for the Wolves. Okay. Actually, probably longer than that because he's been out in L.A. now for about that long.
That's it?
So probably about 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
He ain't coming back.
No.
I mean, like I said, I don't blame him. How could you blame him?
He's got a good gig. He's got his kids playing baseball and soccer out there.
Yeah. They tell me the weather's kind of nice in Southern California most of the time.
It's nice.
You don't have to worry about earthquakes,
I
guess. Didn't they have one the other day? Was it a 6.2?
I'd missed that.
Or 5.8? I thought there was one. Was it further south? Was it more like San Diego way? I could have sworn. Maybe I made it up. I thought I read about an earthquake. I don't think one that did much damage.
You want to talk about the Lakers getting everything?
Yes, and we have nothing?
And we have nothing. And the story of Trudell going to L.A., he was doing Timberwolves.com stuff. He was like a reporter, and he would do podcasts, because podcasts, believe it or not, existed back in 2005. We actually started doing them back then.
Right.
And the Lakers wanted to get it more into the digital space, and they scanned the websites of every other NBA team and said, that's the guy we want, and called him up, and he moved out to L.A.
That's literally the story.
It's literally the story. He called me on the way. We were coming back. I was with PA, I think, at the time. Maybe we were working together. I don't remember. I was coming back from Mankato training camp, and he called me on 169. And he said, you're not going to believe this.
On his drive to L.A.?
Well, I don't think it happened yet, but kidding. Yeah, he just said, you're not going to believe this, but I'm moving to Los Angeles. What are you talking about? Because I'm going to go work for the Lakers. And he told me the story, how they contacted him. And they just looked and said, who should we go get? Because that's what they do. Well, rather than draft Luka or LeBron, they just trade for him or acquire him. It doesn't matter. They get whatever they want.
Well, that's good research.
I think it's a pretty cool story.
They did their homework, and they said, okay, here's how we can improve it.
It's a credit to him.
And it's worked out very, very well. Somebody said that it was a 5.2 in San Diego, a 5.2 earthquake.
That's Josh Broughton territory.
In San Diego, but I think first of all, we have a fairly high structure standards, do we not, when it comes to earthquakes compared to a lot of places?
Yeah.
And so I think this place of 5.2 might be bad, but for us, not so much because of that. But several people say it was the greater San Diego area. Now, I came away from that. I'm curious to get your view. I came away from that conversation thinking that Trudell believes the Wolves have very little chance to win the series. I'm not ripping him for it, but that's what between the lines, that's what I took out of it. What about you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't even think you need to read between the lines. I think when he basically says if Anthony Edwards gets hot and a couple of other guys make shots,
cute,
that's their chance.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise me necessarily. It's not all that different from what we've said or what I've said is they're going to need the tertiary pieces.
Yes.
They're going to need them to be good because Ant is going to need some help. They're going to need the colony.
The colony's going to have to help. But I think this, again, they got a lot of interchangeable parts. He's saying they make up for the lack of, rim protector with the way they can switch and the number of people they have out there that are 6'7", 6'8". I still think you have to put pressure on them defensively. And it starts with Luka. You can't be obsessed with exposing him, but it has to be part of it. And I think in general, this has to be an aggressive offense that does try to get to the free throw line, that does try to get downhill, unless, of course, they use that dreaded zone defense that
Doc Rivers
came up with. That's what I'm worried about. What if they deploy that? Are we doomed at that point, or have we worked on it?
I assume we've worked on it. I think the Nets tried it a little bit a couple of Fridays ago, or last Friday, I'm pretty sure.
All right, let's get back on the proper working schedule. I've got a non-toy department item. It's really not a section either that I want to discuss, and then we'll prepare for Ben Goessling.
KFAN and Custom One Exteriors want to give you a chance to catch the St. Paul Saints in action. Check out our contest page. See how you could win a 4-pack of tickets to the Saints game against the Scranton Rail Riders. That's on June 7th. KFAN.com, keyword contest to enter.
I'm looking at a headline in the Wall Street Journal from, looks like a couple of days. Well, actually, no. This is from several days ago. I won big in Las Vegas by sitting through a timeshare presentation. Subhead, scoring a sweet hotel deal is possible if you listen to the sales pitch. So in this particular case, this was the offer. $149 for a 3-night stay plus a whopping $100,000 Hilton Honors points.
Yeah.
That's I think that's, even by those standards, a pretty good deal. So she sends, Hilton sends an email saying the offer is extended. You got 12 months to book the trip. She wanted to go right away. And the Hilton Vacations timeshare reservations agent was apparently surprised to find last-minute availability at Hilton's Ilara Timeshare Resort, which was this reporter's first choice. Sits in a prime location just off the Strip behind Planet Hollywood.
Yes.
And is connected to a sprawling mall. That's familiar to you?
I am very familiar, yeah.
The price on Hilton's website for my last-minute 3-night stay in a studio with a kitchenette, nearly $1,277.
Excuse me?
Hotel Tonight wanted $916. My all-in price tag, $168. So we're all aware of these deals. Here's where I missed the boat.
Yeah.
Because the way she explains it, the catch was she had to participate in one of those, presentations, okay? But in her case, it was a group presentation. In other words, she's in a room.
Oh, that's lucky.
With a bunch of others. That's beyond lucky, because the only time I did it, I was held hostage.
Yes.
For 3 hours.
Yes.
And actually felt like damaged by the end of it and said, this is ridiculous.
I remember that.
Yes, it was awful. So are there more? Because to me, that's the key to it. Being alone, I don't think it's generally worth it. Unless you're somebody who just wants to battle. And believe it or not, in that setting, I really don't, despite my reputation. But if it's a group thing like this, where you're sitting in a banquet room with, even if it's 10 other people,
strength in numbers,
I don't think they have enough people to strong arm each of you to the same degree, right? Unless they dismiss you one at a time and they say you're not leaving until we look you in the eye individually. I'm not sure, but I didn't even realize this was an option when it comes to getting these kinds of deals via the timeshare deal, where you got to listen to their presentation.
So did she go on to say that the group was just dismissed at the end? I mean, how did she get out of it so quickly then? That's what I want to know, like to follow it, because my wife and I did a Hilton one years and years ago, Orlando.
Okay.
Same deal. We were there for like the Disney World Marathon. She was running it. I obviously wasn't. I was jogging the half marathon, but it was the exact same deal. $149, 3 nights at one of their Hilton Grand Vacation things, which are really nice.
Yeah.
It had a huge room. It was awesome. And then you go to the presentation, and I still remember the guy's name, Caesar. Awesome guy. But we couldn't get out of Caesar's way.
No.
And he was nice about it. And then finally he did, unscrew us from the chairs and let us go after our breakfast and presentation. But I get those emails now every single year, probably more than that, right? We get those a lot. You can go to Vegas, you can go to Austin, you can go to Myrtle Beach, you can go to Hawaii. Here's the deals, $150, 100,000 Hilton points. But you got to do this presentation. And I do think about it. I said, do I have it in me still?
I don't.
To say no to that guy? Because Caesar was awesome. We really felt bad saying no to Caesar. But it just wasn't going to work out. But if it was a group setting, they probably don't want that secret out, because I would sign up for that in a second.
I think we all would.
If we're shuffling out of a conference room.
That's exactly what caught my attention in the story. She writes, I grabbed a Diet Coke, a couple of old Wisconsin turkey snack sticks, and some Tillamook cheddar cheese, and settled in for Bucky's presentation. Bucky apparently was the person in charge. The couple next to me on their first visit to Las Vegas, thanks to a timeshare promo, showed up with their own snacks. There were 15 people in my group.
That's crazy.
Most of them couples, both members of a married couple, must attend.
That's the other part. And you can't do this just on your own. You got to have both.
So Bucky apparently starts with a highlights reel of all the places timeshare owners can use their Hilton Vacation Club points. It includes more than 10,000 in 100-plus countries: Hawaii, Chicago, New York City, Park City, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, if you're outdoorsy. Goes on and on. How the timeshare works, etc. So, but she doesn't really explain. I'm looking. Yeah, she doesn't really explain how it ended, whether it's person by person or, everybody is able to leave at the same time, because then that's a piece of cake. Safety in numbers in that kind of environment. Correct. I just didn't even know this was ever. I thought that was the game. The game is on. We only do individual presentations because we know that's how we learn to put the pressure on. And people really, it's almost like confession time in the Who's Gal. You end up confessing to things that you had nothing to do with just because you want the whole session to end and you want to move on with the rest of your life.
What is the psychology that the timeshare always sounds way better while you're sitting there than when you actually have it? Why don't timeshares? Because, the greatest joke of all time is Common Man doing commercials for a timeshare with Roseanne.
Yes, that's right.
And then a year later, he's endorsing Timeshare Exit Team.
Right.
Because you got to find a way out, and they're impossible to get out.
We've all heard those commercials. The guy who's basically that he's made a complete living.
He takes it for you.
Yeah, on getting you out of any timeshare, or he will not take your money.
But has anybody ever executed a successful timeshare where you were glad you did it? It was worth it that you did it. You used it as much as you thought you were going to do, eating those beef sticks and cheese when you got the presentation from Bucky or Caesar. Has anybody ever successfully executed a timeshare ownership? That's what I always wonder, because it does sound good in theory.
Very much.
But it's obviously not, because people are always trying to get out of them.
Yeah, I've never been convinced that it's worth the alleged advantages, but and now there just seem to be so many horror stories that I think I would be even. And I don't even know is the industry damaged or broken, because over the years all these commercials have run about people desperately trying to get out of their timeshare. They don't even realize what they signed it up for. The idea that, well, at any given moment, whatever their timeshare is, they can add another. Okay, it's going to cost you $5,000 this year because there's some maintenance stuff that's related,
right?
And you don't know how to fight that. You don't even know where it ends. It seems like it's a bill that might go up and that you're never going to see the end of it. For allegedly, and you often don't even end up in the place you want when you want to be there. Correct?
Right. That's the issue. Those are the horror stories we hear.
Yeah, 100%.
But clearly the industry's still hanging in there.
And maybe the industry is desperate enough now, they say we'll have larger groups, because I was shocked and then annoyed that it's like, God, I wish I would have done it at a time like that, but I didn't even think that was an option, because I thought whatever the statistics indicate, our best chance... Obviously, your best chance to get somebody to buy in a timeshare, buy in, is at the moment, because you walk. I'm sure it's like they walk out that door, and it becomes too easy to just say we're moving on with the rest of our vacation, and we're not going to ever look back on the thing. All right, bottom of the hour pause.
Have you enjoyed your timeshare, the one that you bought all those years ago?
All I got out of it, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. I mean, we were already staying at the hotel, and what they said was, "Hey, listen to the presentation. We got you 4 of these like massive state-of-the-art bath towels, basically." That's all it was. But you're there already, you go, and I had never done it before. How bad could it be?
Yeah.
And then
you needed the towels.
I was beyond indignant.
Jump out the window.
Yeah, and they don't bring the towels out early. That's the other thing. It's like they make you work for the towels. And then it's the old bit, there's 2 guys in my case, and it was like, here are the numbers. And I said, man, I'm not, it doesn't matter what number you show me. I wouldn't do it today. And they said, give me a minute. So he leaves, and he goes, it's almost like the used car, car bit from Fargo, where he goes, I go to another room to check on the clear coat, and I come back, you know what? I was wrong. We actually can slash another $50,000 off. And he thinks, I guess, I'm an idiot. He thinks that, well, that's it. Where can I sign? Can I do 2 of these deals?
Right.
And, then they just keep pushing. And then the second guy who's in the other room, he comes into the room. And then it's 2-on-2. And we're going to make you squirm even more. And you don't understand how good a deal this is. And this is a deal that's not going to stay. This is a deal that's going to go away as soon as you walk out this room. And I go, well, I guess in that business, that's what you have to do.
It's exactly right.
I wouldn't want any part of it, though. But I would be far more interested in big auditorium where there's 20 of us.
Even if you don't get a towel at the end.
Even I don't get a towel at the end. Exactly right. Let's chat with Ben Goessling. He is coming up. Draft now is right around the corner. Starts next Thursday in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We'll see what Ben is up to, what kind of stories he's planning, and maybe his own reaction to a story we spent a little bit of time on yesterday, but maybe not enough. Aaron Rodgers going public with some of his concerns regarding his one-sided conversation with the New York Jets.
Don't miss out on the excitement and fun of Timberwolves playoff basketball. Visit the only official ticket marketplace for Wolves playoff games at timberwolves.com/playoffs to secure your seats today. Be a part of the playoff madness. And don't forget, we've got a pair of tickets to give away for Game 3 1 week from tonight. Just hit the talkback icon of your iHeartRadio app. You got 30 seconds. Tell us why you think the Wolves will win the series. We'll pick a winner about an hour from now. Hit the talkback for Game 3 tickets.
So Game 1, Lakers, Wolves will be on the Fan, correct? Saturday night. Game 1, the first round Stanley Cup Western Conference Series between the Wild and the Vegas team, the Golden Knights, I think they're called.
You got it.
That'll be Sunday night, correct?
Yep.
And then we'll kind of go from there depending on schedules and so forth. And when things overlap, we got other ways to do it.
Game 2, Wild and Wolves are both Tuesday night.
So
Wild will be on the Fan, Wolves on the Timberwolves channel.
There it is. Very, very good.
Thursday, Game 3 will be on the Fan. The NFL Draft will be on Twin Cities AM 1130. News Talk AM 1130. First hour of the draft's going to be on the Fan, then we'll kick it over, I think is how we're doing.
Well, somebody said this is as good a week as any to make sure you have gotten the latest version of the iHeartRadio app, which allows you basically, when you think of your radio and you have those buttons that represent your 5
the presets
favorite stations, the presets.
Yeah.
You can have your own preset or presets. So you can go back and forth.
It's the beauty of it.
Between, let's say, the Wild game and the draft, and not have to, now what frequency is that on, or which station is that on? It's already preset there. You just go back and forth with the touch of a button, and then you're in good shape. So it is a good week. If you've not updated and gotten the newest version of the iHeartRadio app, you should.
Which is free.
And it is free. Ben Goessling, brought to you by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. You got the latest version of the iHeartRadio app, don't you?
I sure do.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you can't beat the cost. See, you guys at the Star Tribune, you make people pay. We don't make people pay. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a little different, I suppose, when you're a national conglomerate as opposed to just the local daily newspaper trying to make a living in the world. We're just the underdog trying to stay alive. So, you got to have subscribers sometimes help pick up the cost of what you're trying to do every day.
I hope Glenn Taylor would buck up a little bit.
Well, to be fair, I don't know about you, Dan, but I only need one subscription to the Star Tribune.
Yeah.
I have that. Somehow I have 2 to the Athletic.
We both have it.
And I still can't even get where I need to sometimes.
Yes.
So I appreciate the Star Tribune. I just needed the one subscription.
Yeah.
I've got everything to read, Ben.
Yeah, this is true in both cases.
You get everything, and we cover all the sports.
The problem is what you learn about the Athletic. I mean, I've got a New York Times subscription.
Me too.
But earlier, I also had, or I don't know what the sequence was, but what was really interesting, and we've given Johnny crap about this, is that trying to cancel, if you have a Times subscription, you're going to get the Athletic, right? But there's a separate Athletic subscription I had before they came together. You can't get out of it. There's no mechanism. There's no phone number. There's no email. There's literally no way to get out of it. So we are both double paying for our access to the Athletic and or the New York Times, I guess.
You know what? I can try to help with that. I'll see if I can use my reportorial skills.
Well, you have some.
There's no question. Help you guys cancel that one, and then maybe you can use the money for another subscription to the Star Tribune.
There it is. Maybe that's the answer. 100% true. Early text comes in from James. I saw that the only NFC North team not in the top 10 in offensive line cost is the Packers. Are they smart or going to get left behind? Or are the Vikings and Bears trying to be the Lions inefficiently? What do you think?
Well, I think the Packers have been pretty low cost in a lot of things. A lot of approach they've taken since Rodgers left was kind of let all of these kids play and let all of the young guys come up. And, I think they probably will have some investments to make there, whether it's paying guys in the next few years or needing to upgrade the positions by adding some veterans to it. I mean, some of this is life cycle stuff. If you have guys that you played early that are starting for you on a rookie deal, you can have those costs be low. But what also then happens is the trade-off is a lot of those players will hit free agency at the same time, and you're looking to make a lot of replacements at the same time. So I think a lot of it has been just the stage of it they've been in. I mean, really, when they let Rodgers go, I think they went very kind of rookie costs on a lot of things. They had a lot of players that they just filled the roster with some of those deals rather than filling it with veterans like the Vikings have. So I think that's kind of where we're at now. But yeah, with the Vikings and the Bears, I think they've said, let's go out and invest in those positions. Some of it has been for the Vikings. It's Darisaw and O'Neal getting paid, and those are on extensions of draft picks. But it's also they need to do something at those positions that they don't have an answer for internally. So I think some of it has been trying to copy what the Lions have done. I mean, the Lions have really been the gold standard in terms of hitting on draft picks, and then you keep those guys, and it gets expensive, but it's the same group that stays together, and you get the continuity from it as well. So, yeah, a lot of different approaches there, but I think what the Lions have done is probably in a perfect world the problem everybody would like to have.
100%. 64686 if you have a question or an observation for Ben Goessling, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line, and as Gaardsy mentioned, don't forget to hit that Wolves talkback line for a chance to win Game 3 tickets, Wolves-Lakers first-round series. Just give your best rationale for why the Wolves will win the series, and we'll announce the big winner later in today's broadcast. Aaron Rodgers went public yesterday. We got into some of it during the top 5, but I never got to a soundbite where Rodgers was basically saying, come on, guys, I fly all the way across the country. I'm thinking we're going to have a conversation. And it was a very one-sided conversation in which they basically dismissed me almost immediately. You could have done that by phone. Aaron Rodgers generally has rarely in recent years made himself a sympathetic character. But did he have any kind of reasonable point in that regard, or is he conveniently leaving a lot of history and a lot of things out? What did you make of his effort to chat about his current condition and how things went down at the end with the Jets?
Well, first of all, I'm glad his cell phone service is better. I mean, it was my understanding. I think, didn't he say a couple of years ago that you can't get him on the phone? Yes. You got to do FaceTime because his cell service at his house isn't very good. Right. I feel like that was a thing he had with the Packers. So maybe he's gotten an upgrade there. So that's a good thing. We're happy for him there. But yeah, I mean, overall, yes. If you're going to fly all the way across the country, you probably expect to be doing so in a little more of a substantive conversation than, hey, we're going to move on. I mean, I have meetings sometimes at the office where it's like, hey, this could have probably just been an email or a Slack message. So in that sense, I suppose there's some validity to what he's saying there. I think what he said came out of that meeting that Aaron Glenn told him about, I'm worried, or at least inferred or implied that he was worried that Rodgers would be in the back of the room kind of casting his own version of how things should be done. I mean, I think a lot of that is probably why the Jets made the decision that they did. And that, as aggrieved as he sounds about that, it is part of the deal with him at this point. I think you have a lot of teams probably saying, okay, this guy's won 4 MVPs. He's won a Super Bowl. He's got a Super Bowl MVP, one of the greats to ever do it. But he is at this point where he fancies himself the purveyor of the right way of playing football. And he will say that to anybody that gives him the ability to do so, whether that's Pat McAfee or somebody else in the locker room. So I think there's a lot of those calculations that anybody that was going to bring him in has to make. And ultimately, Aaron Glenn said, I don't really want this here. Yeah, I do think there's probably a better way to do that than make him fly from the West Coast to the East Coast just to do that. But, the sympathetic figure part, I do think it's difficult because the reason they made the decision, a lot of it has to do with the way he has handled things and handled himself over the last few years.
How much of it do you think at this point has to do with who he is as a quarterback now? Because, you can really you could play with his numbers last year and in some ways make him look really not as bad as the perception of the team. And then you could look at some other ones and go, oh my God, he didn't get downfield much at all. So that's another part of this, right? That maybe we don't even talk about enough, wherever he ends up landing, Pittsburgh or wherever, is, exactly how much benefit of the doubt does he deserve at this point? How much quarterback does he have left in him?
Yeah, I think the question, the saying you hear in the NFL a lot of times is greater talent equals greater tolerance. If you are the best at what you do, somebody will put up with the fact that you're a pain in the butt. It's a lot easier to get a job when you are the very, very best. When that starts to slip, for one reason or another, you don't get that much of the benefit of the doubt anymore. And I think that's a little bit of where we're getting with Rodgers. Yes, some of the efficiency numbers last year are not too bad, but the thing that everybody saw him do, and the Vikings were on the business end of this as much as anybody, is the accuracy mixed with the aggressiveness. He was so good at making plays downfield, making big plays without, kind of paying the price and turning the ball over a lot. I think you still see his ability to take care of the football for the most part. I think that's flipped a little bit, but yes, the playmaking, the throws on the run, all of that kind of stuff is not where it was. And that's just, it's going to happen when you are coming off an Achilles. You've played as much as he has. The power that he drives the football with is probably not going to be quite the same. So yeah, it does become, I think, a little more of a challenge. And you're talking about a guy that is going to be 42 years old later this year. And how long are you having him as your guy? How long are you giving him a platform to kind of talk about how he thinks things should be done and whatever effect that may leave after he's gone versus how long he's actually going to be your quarterback? I think a lot of those questions are why it's a tricky fit for a lot of teams.
Did you see the Mark Murphy nugget from a few days ago?
I don't think I did. Did he say something about Rodgers?
Yeah, he's I think he's still the president and CEO of the club, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And apparently he was on what they're calling the Packers tailgate tour. And apparently the Rodgers subject came up. And according to a couple published reports, his comment was, I think somehow, some way, he's going to end up with the Vikings. Now, I thought we were all kind of past this, and we probably are. But it was kind of interesting that he went down that road. And I don't know if that's based on any kind of inside knowledge, gut feeling, or maybe it's just for him it's kind of fun trolling just to get people going. I'm not, another team's fans going in the division, but I did think that was interesting.
Yeah. I suppose it could go any number of ways until he signs. The conversation's not going to completely die, but I think it's probably reasonable to assume that the president of the Packers does not have up-to-date inside information on the conversations that Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips and Josh McCown and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah are having about the quarterback position. I would think they would, of all of the places they would try to keep that information from getting, the offices of the Green Bay Packers would be fairly high on that list. So, yeah, I assume he's probably shooting from the hip a little bit there and maybe saying, okay, this was something that got talked about and there was some interest, and until he signs, it's not impossible that he gets there. But yeah, from the Vikings perspective, it has been, they're moving on. They are looking to supplement that position, but they are moving on with the idea that J.J. McCarthy is taking the job and going to get every chance to be the guy. And now if he gets hurt or if he doesn't look good, I think maybe then they look at options, but I don't know that, as I think Rodgers talked about this a little bit, the idea that he's going to sit around and just wait for the Vikings is not where his head's at this point either. So yes, I think we've probably moved past it being a possibility, and I would imagine Mark Murphy is probably just spitballing a little bit there.
Texter Paul, I heard McCarthy looks great in OTAs. Let's talk about what that looks like. Have I missed some OTAs? Have you missed some OTAs quite yet?
OTAs do not start until Memorial Day or after Memorial Day. In fact, players cannot be back in the building to work out as a team until Monday, April 21st. So maybe some of the stuff he's done, and he's been in the building working out on his own, and we've heard good things about how that's gone. But no, we're not quite to the OTA portion of the offseason.
I didn't think so. I didn't think people are eager. Maybe that's what they want to believe, like you say. All right, so draft is next Thursday. We kind of know, I think, what the, at least at this point, how many picks we have. Has anything changed since we last talked regarding what you think the strategy is more likely to be? Is it, you still view it as far more likely? I mean, if I gave you three options, move up, move down, or just stay where you are, how would you rank them? What do you think is most likely to be the case starting next Thursday?
I would go move down first, stay where you are second, maybe kind of a 1A, and then move up, I would put third. I just don't think they have the capital to do it, but there are enough ways they could go about this and enough positions they could address that if they got an offer to move back, especially if somebody got enamored enough with one of those quarterbacks that's still hanging around in the back of the first round that wanted to trade up, I could see them doing that because I think there are enough places in this draft where they feel like they could come out with a good player that if they're looking at it and saying moving down from, say, 24 to 28 or something, if they felt like we're still going to get a player we like at this spot and you can get another pick in a year where they only have 4, I think they'd be very interested in doing that. Now, if there's somebody that they really like and say, we can't live without this guy, then I think they'll stick and pick. But, if both of those scenarios are possible and they felt good about what they could do moving down, I certainly think that would be something they'd be very interested in doing. Because this would actually be the smallest draft class in Vikings history right now. They have never had fewer than 5 picks in a draft, and presently they have 4. So I would think they're looking to add to that total, and I expect they will. But if there's an opportunity to do it in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised if they took that chance. Besides
running back, what are some other positions where this draft is, at least on paper, is supposed to be strong?
Well, I think you look at the defensive tackle group, there's a lot of options there. I think, they address that obviously with Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, but both of those guys are in their 30s. Both are coming off injuries. I think that's still a position they put a fair amount of emphasis on scouting, so I could see them trying to get someone there. There are a lot of different options in terms of like a big nose guard type or a little bit more of an upfield defensive tackle that can penetrate and get in the backfield. You can kind of pick your flavor there. There could be some options for them at the end of the first round. It's a draft with tight ends that is pretty deep, and I think that's not something they would turn their nose up at doing at some point. I mean, I don't think that's going to be a first-round pick. It's not going to be Colton Loveland or anything like that, but I think they would like to add there. And then, I look at the offensive line. There are going to be some options at guard that I think will be there for them as well. I think that's something they could very well end up doing next week, is saying, let's take one more, let's add a left guard to this group and, kind of fortify it from what they did in the offseason. So there are a number of ways they could go about it. Even corner, I think there are some good options towards the back of the first round, and they should, if they have an opportunity there, I think that's something they could look very closely at as well.
Ray in Paige Becker's hometown asks this: I've heard many times the Steelers are waiting on Rodgers. Why aren't the Steelers pursuing Kirk Cousins?
Well, I think a lot of that with Cousins is at this point you'd have to trade something to get him. I mean, the Falcons have said they're hanging on to him. I think they have probably wanted to play their hand fairly close to their chest to see if they could get a draft pick for him. And Rodgers right now it's just cash. So there's that piece of it. And I think you could look at the two of them and what you saw last year and probably feel better about Rodgers than you do about Cousins. I mean, Cousins had a stretch there, kind of his typical Kirktober time of the year where he was pretty good, but then at the end he falls off. There's worry about injuries beyond just the Achilles that he's coming back from. I think you could look at those two guys side by side at this point and convince yourself that you're better off with Rodgers than Cousins. And that may be what the Steelers have done, but you also have the thing with Cousins with the trade. He's got a no-trade clause. You have to figure out, will the Falcons want somebody to eat some of the money in that deal if they're going to make a trade? So there's some complications with Cousins that do not exist with Rodgers, at least in terms of the finances. There are other complications with Rodgers, like we've talked about, but they're different than the ones that go on the balance sheet, so to speak.
Are you, refresh my memory, you may have told us this last week, Are you going to TCO or are you going to Green Bay for the draft itself?
As far as next week, the answer to that is yes. I will be in Green Bay on Wednesday for some of the pre-draft stuff.
Nice.
Emily Leiker and I are carpooling over there, so we'll go over some of the press conferences, talk to some of the prospects that are attending the draft, but then we will be back
Perfect.
at TCO for the first night of the draft. And I think Mark Craig is possibly going over to attend the first round of the draft in Green Bay. So our ever-expanding army will have a lot of the Upper Midwest canvassed in one way or the other next week.
And I will say this, if anybody can get Vince Lombardi to speak again, it's Mark Craig. I mean, if there's a way it can be accomplished, if there's going to be a Lombardi Q&A, it'll be with Mark Craig, don't you think?
Well, if we could, I mean, he got Zim last year. It's like, if we could get that's worth your subscription dollars right there. I mean, if we get Vince Lombardi to come back and talk and give us all the details on whatever he wants to talk about. If Mark can pull that one off, I think putting your hard-earned nickels together for a Star Screaming subscription would be a good move.
Maybe Brett Favre is more realistic. That would be a good interview too. But if you pull off either of those, I'm willing to get my second Star Tribune subscription if you'd like.
There you go. We'll see what we can do, and I'll let Mark know if he's listening. He's already maybe working on it, but if he hasn't heard it, I will let him know that the stakes have been put on the table, and maybe we'll see what we can make happen.
Safe travels to the Dairyland State, and we'll figure out the schedule. Well, we'll probably talk Friday, I guess, the day after the first big day of the draft, but we'll figure all that out next week. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sam.
Ben Goessling writes for the Star Tribune and contributes to this program now pretty much year-round, generally on Fridays, brought to you by our very good friends at Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Let me remind you that Lavelle will join in about a half hour and change. We'll get to some top 5 at 5 material. I'm guessing Gaardsy will help us preview the red-hot Minnesota Twins. What else is on the table besides the Twins for the top 5?
A Rob Pelinka nugget.
Ooh.
And Luka goes deep on his thoughts about being traded from Dallas.